So this is ninth, and this is the review for the Henry test. And so everybody, I'll just post this for anybody that was out today in any class. We basically reviewed it. Taylor asked a really good question. She said something about condensing. And if you notice, just for example, look at the first one. It says characters. Well, there's one Henry. Notice how I've kind of organized this. I've put Henry, his uncle, and his cousins, and then the traders, who one of which happens to be a cousin. So you see, you could study all those at the same time, because Henry and the uncle and the cousins are all related. So put those together. So you got one Henry, one cousin, one uncle, but you got two cousins, York and Westmoreland. So group those. Then you got three traders, Scroop, Gray, and Cambridge. You can group those. You got five former friends. Group those. You got five British officers. You got three common soldiers, and then you got the French. I didn't count, but that's about 6 categories that instead of studying the 18 things that are there, study the 6 things that are there. Make it easier, make it smaller by grouping things. For instance, with the traders, only one of those 3 guys matter.
Scrooge.
Yeah, and because
his
he was,
best friend.
right. The other 2 are just part of the group. Westmoreland and York are not really important, but they are cousins.
I said that Westmoreland also was one who tried to convince Henry V to invade France. Because
I forgot about that.
I believe in scene 2.
I forgot about
Or
that.
scene 1, it was Westmoreland, Eli, and Canterbury.
Yeah, the one, that's really probably more important than what I remember about him. He was the one that says, I wish we had 10,000 more Englishmen that aren't doing anything today. And that spurred Henry to say, what's he that wishes so, my cousin Westmoreland? No, my dear cousin, we are now to do our country loss, and if to live the fewer men, the greater share of honor. It happens to be the theme of that entire speech was motivated by the question that Westmoreland, or the wish Westmoreland had. The whole speech is about, no, I don't want any more. And at the end of it, it's really funny how Shakespeare does that. He turns to Westmoreland and says, you still wish we had 10,000 more men? And Westmoreland says, no, sire. I wish just you and me were here. We'd take them on ourselves. That's, if Shakespeare was modern, he'd say, that's what I'm talking about, right there. That attitude. Yeah, just the fewer, just a couple of us could take on these guys. So now, I don't know how much of that, Taylor, you need to look at, but that was my way of helping you, because it's a really good question. Group them. Now you have 6 categories with various sub-examples. But that would be, we can come back to that in a minute. How about, we'll go to Anna Grace, we'll go back to.
Okay, so I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on the many different motives for and aspects of war described in the play.
Please highlight it. I'm gonna ask it, I'm telling you today, and I'm gonna do it on Thursday.
Which one is that number?
It's under number 4.
It's theme,
Oh, 5.
under themes.
Yeah, it's also,
Yeah, in the back.
going to be an exam question and on the written exam. That's how important it is.
War motives? The many different motives for and aspects of war described in the play.
All right, now, my problem with this question is, I don't get the answers I'm looking for. So I must be asking it the wrong way. I often ask, what are the motives for war? And sometimes I've gotten examples, which are motives, like motives or reasons, or these are the things why people in this book. I think that's my problem. I just say in this book, I want to see things in any war that we have examples of in this war. Celeste, are you doing all right? Celeste?
She's out.
No, she's not going to be.
Thank you.
Celeste. All right. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
We only got 45 minutes left. Now 30 minutes. So. Okay, so that's the question. What are the motives? Why do people go to war in Ukraine? Why do they go to war in Afghanistan? Why do they go to war in France?
Power.
Okay, that would have to be one of them.
I would say power and greed, but I would say greed because there's always something that the leader thinks they will obtain by doing war.
Right, and
So-
what would be one, if you break those down, Tate, what would be one of those things that people want to obtain?
A throne.
Land
Wealth.
and money. And those would be two separate examples. So who wants land, Tate? France wants land?
English. France wants the money.
Yeah, he wants everything. He wants the whole land. It's not so much the land he wants the throne over that, you know? I mean, the fact the King of France gave him some land. Yeah, you can have this dukedom and that fiefdom and, but he didn't want that. He wanted the power that the king had. And then you mentioned money, and that could be several examples. Do you have some examples of that?
Oh, I have a question about that. So instead of like examples from the book, you want overarching
No,
topics?
I want examples from the book, but the question is, whatever examples you give me from the book will be examples that apply to any other situation, like Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine, he wants the power over it, he wants the land.
I have
How is
some
that going?
examples for
Political
that.
control.
All right,
Okay.
let's
I
go
said,
back.
so for wealth, a way that the French were gaining wealth was they kept sending Mountjoy to gather a ransom because they were pretty sure they were going to capture the king, and if they did so, they would have gained money from doing it.
I had forgotten about that. That was a way that, it was about money, yeah. Did you have another?
Political. Because when you have political control, you have control over the people and what they.
Like, give me an example from the book.
Like, hold on. Well, it's more from history because we're also learning at the same time, like, the French king would be like, hey, this is what we need, this is what we want, can you supply that? And then when it's supplied, they become, like, they're a part of the town, they have political control of some sort.
Well, since we get more of the English point of view here rather than the French,
Yeah, you're right.
it goes back to Henry. I mean, the answer to that question, political question, is Henry. He wants the political power. You want to call it the politics. You want to call it, power.
Oh, yeah,
You want to
because
call it the
It
throne.
was his seat on the throne, so it's his political.
Yeah.
So he also, a way that he completed wanting to have the land and the people political control would be also he was kind to the French people because he was confident enough that he was going to win and that those people were going to be his people.
And that actually points out Henry's leadership qualities. You can't use a, the carrot and the stick approach. You can't use the stick, beat somebody over the head with it. Sometimes you have to use a carrot, which is what you would use to kind of lure somebody. Either way, and that's what he's doing with the French. He wants to treat them well so that when he's king, they won't give him a lot of trouble. So you've got political power and you've got money, yeah.
I have a question. So was it at Hartford he gave a speech and then he gave one at Agincourt, right?
Yes, but let's finish this one before we move on. You would need to give me examples. You don't have to now, but make sure you would have examples of money. And one would be the French wanting ransom, the church wanting to save money by not losing their lands, and then of course,
The commoners.
the commoners, yes, stealing money. Stealing to sell for money. All those things are examples of profit and war. So we got politics and we got profit. What else?
Politics, profit, we did one.
And I can think of a P word if you want to keep it in the.
Power. Patriotism. No.
Well, that's all kind of power, patriotism, and politics kind of go together. I would say prestige or glory. Glory is the better word, but it doesn't start with the letter P. Think about the French. Their only motive here was glory. They just can't wait to beat these guys because they'll get all the fame. And Henry uses that approach in his St. Crispin speech. That's the point. We might die, but even in death, we'll get glory. But just think if we win. Think how glorious it'll be for our 12,000 to defeat their 60,000. They'll be writing plays about us, which is what happened.
There was a show where she can see ghosts, like that live in her house, but nobody else can. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, that one looks like Alexander Hamilton." And the guy's like, "Do not tell me that tourist got famous." And I thought it was kind of funny because we all know like the Alexander Hamilton. Seen it?
It's kind of,
Which show is this?
Oh, it's like, have you seen, I don't know the name of it, but have you seen like the ads for it?
It's called Ghosts.
Yeah.
right, so anyway, 3, we've done glory or prestige, we've done power or politics, and we've done profit. Anything else? Yeah.
I don't have a question about this, it's about the one
Well,
after.
hang on to it. Just want to make sure we finish this one. The-
Power.
Right. We did
You
power,
went, you went with P.
yeah,
so
power, prestige, and
profit.
profit.
Pushing me for real.
Okay.
Now, another way I could ask it, what are the costs of war?
Oh,
Like, what does
people's
it
lives.
cost people? Yeah.
Yeah, people's
And,
lives.
and of course,
Yeah.
what are the details from the story that back that
And
up?
money.
Did they?
the boys. The boys.
That'd
who
be an
they killed.
example.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I wouldn't say this was the act of war, but the act of becoming the king. Henry's decisions to focus on his army and everything like that basically killed Henry's like relationships with like John. What's his name? John Falstaff. Yeah.
You know, if you, again, a word that encompasses that would be violent. That's a
Yeah.
violent, kind of a violent thing.
Yeah.
Henry's father killed the previous king.
Right. And
So
there
that's
were
violence.
10,000 French dead and 4,500 or 100 to 150 English dead in Shakespeare's numbers.
So
those
people
cost
died,
lives.
but of that 30, remember there
Right.
were 30
Right.
total. He was related to two of them. His cousin, or at least one of his cousins, York, I don't know if Suffolk was his cousin. And he had to kill 2 of his friends,
Yeah.
Bardolph and them. People die. And
They both.
there must be other costs. The play doesn't focus on those other costs, but the cost of lives is the primary one. All right, I think we've covered that. How about your
Oh,
question?
okay, I was gonna add to that. I was just gonna add to this, and never mind.
Well, go ahead, please, add to it.
Would the killing of traitors be a cost? of
Yes, it
war?
would be. Yes, I absolutely forgotten that. It's very good.
It's like,
People get killed in war.
So it's lives.
Yeah, that's the primary cost we see. We can imagine other costs, but in this book, the focus is on the cost in lives and relationships, friendships.
Would you almost say humanity, because I feel like taking away a life and then also destroying your friendship.
Well, and think about the 2 people that were fighting each other, the 3 people. Henry, the Dauphin, and King Charles. They didn't die. They didn't get wounded that we know of. Those guys never do. The guys that start the war.
Just everyone else.
Yeah, and that's, remember, that was an important point Henry made. People are gonna die here. He made it a couple of times. Because of the Dolphins' tennis balls. That was a pretty good joke until he said people are gonna die because of this, and they did. Frenchmen are gonna die because of the Dolphins' joke. You ever heard of Stalin? The Russian, the communist leader of Russia for about 50 years. Stalin said this: the death of one man is a tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic.
True. True.
So if you ever focus on one of those babies that get killed, it becomes a tragedy. But if 1,000 babies get killed, it's just a number. When you start looking at those 10,000 Frenchmen and you see the constable, and we got to know the constable a little bit, that makes it real. That's a tragedy. But 10,000, no big deal. That's war. Yeah.
how many people fought at Agincourt?
The numbers we're going are Shakespeare's.
Okay, what are Shakespeare's?
30 English dead.
Are you talking about the dead or those that
Or
fought?
the troops.
Wait, what's the, oh yeah, I guess the number that fought.
Do you have that, Hannah Grace?
I do, but I don't.
Okay, I know it, I'll just save you some time. 60,000 French, 12,000 English.
Died.
No, fought.
Fought. Okay.
But those, remember, those are the Shakespeare's numbers. They're not historically accurate, but we're gonna use those.
Sorry, can you repeat those again?
60 to 12, and that's 5 to 1. Those are the odds.
Do you need to know the real numbers?
No.
Okay.
Just those numbers, the Shakespeare numbers.
And do we need to know the number of dead?
Yes.
I have that right here.
Yeah, what is that?
10,000 French dead and 30 English dead.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, those 2 numbers are so disparate, so the disparity between those are unrealistic, but
15th of October and 15, 14.
How many of
Or
them?
14,
30?
30.
Wait, 14.
15th of-
15 of
Dang, so they were outnumbered, but they still had less people.
Is it
That's right.
14, 15,
Sorry,
you said?
yeah. The 15th of October, 1450 is the day
25th of October.
25th.
Yes, not, I don't know, I mean, it could be an extra credit question, I might put it on there,
25th October, what's the date?
25th.
it's right there.
25th.
And their date right
Oh,
behind
it's
it.
right there. Right there.
25th.
Agent court.
Wait, can I ask my question? Sorry.
All right, yeah, we'll go back to it.
So, okay, it says that interaction with opposite classes like nationalities, the English.
Yeah, this is, I'm gonna ask this, I promise you, this is.
I've never understood that, like, how you ported it, like the
Yeah.
when you said interactions, like they
Interaction.
like each other?
Any kind of interaction, where rich people, the upper class and the lower class interact with each other, would be one of parts of those questions. Hang on, he's answering it, Taylor, he's answering your question.
Like Henry disguising himself and then speaking in prose.
That's a great answer to that. Can you think of other examples?
Of what?
Yeah.
Morris say we're ready to bring down the wall.
All right, that would be an example of interaction between nationalities, because McMorris is Irish, Llewellyn is English. So you have that kind of interaction in the play, yeah.
Wait, which group was it that had like a weird way of speaking in the book?
Well, one person did, I don't know if all Welsh people talk like that, but Llewellyn spoke
Welsh.
like that. He happens to be Welsh. Henry doesn't talk like that.
Remember the
did he
part
say?
where they tell us to like, use your imagination and imagine thousands of soldiers,
Yeah.
they just bring 3 up. So if on like the, if on the test I do say that like, I guess the Welsh talk weird through Llewellyn or something, would that count off or
Well,
anything?
what depends on what the question is.
Okay, well like.
I don't know why I would ask you that question. Yeah. That's just something that distinguishes Llewellyn, and I think it's supposed to be funny. I don't think all Welsh, because Henry's Welsh, and he certainly doesn't talk like that. All right, so we're answering the question about interaction, and we've sort of already mixed it. Think about, can you think of others? Catherine and Alice, high class, low class, Catherine and Alice.
Okay, hold on. Is that capital with a K or?
Okay.
Which A, please?
No.
Alice.
And that scene is,
All right, those are just some examples of every time the French and the English negotiate, that's two different countries, coming nationalities.
And then Henry and Catherine at the end.
At the end, that's two different countries, same strata of society.
Could you explain what happens at the Battle of Crecy and Flanders? Because I remember Harfleur and Agincourt, but.
Okay. Have we answered that question? The one we're looking at was
Yeah.
the interaction.
yeah,
Interaction between
Yes.
upper and lower class, interaction between nationalities.
yeah, that's.
And
those are
now,
two,
like,
yeah.
kind of a Tim's question, can we go through the places, like, Southampton, Hartford, Tracy,
Wait, what? Okay.
the places,
Yeah.
and like the wars?
So
that
Tim's
occurred there?
asking a question about number 2. There'll be some questions about that. We'll go to Crecy and Poitiers. Those were two battles that
English
preceded Agincourt,
So they proceeded, what is proceed?
coming before.
Go.
Is there anything
Okay, so they
specific
came
that we
before
need to
Agincourt.
Wait a
know?
minute, I start over.
Is there anything specific we need to know? Like, I know at Hartford, we didn't know it was like a siege. or
Okay, what we know about those, we know the dates, 1346, is that?
Is that Harfleur?
That's
1346?
Crecy and Poitiers, 1356. I think, I don't know if I asked you that, but I want to get it right. Do you have it?
Can you say what you just said again about the places?
Crecy and Poitiers are battles that preceded, that came before Agincourt, which is 1415. So these two battles took place, I think it's 1346, 1356. And they were both victories by the English, and at least one of them, if not both of them,